Right after the Second World War, most school-age kids had to pick up where they started from as far back as 4 to 5 years ago. Our little hero was around 8 years old when he started school, while a lot of his classmates were already teenagers by then. They lived in a mountain village around 7 to 10 kilometers from the nearest school in the town of Barongis, North Cotabato. The common practice then, if a student wants to go to school, was to stay with a family in town. For payment, the young student had to do household chores for the family. So it was that arrangement that the little boy stayed with the Quiñones family, a friend of his father's, sometime in 1946. After school, he cleaned the house or ran errands for them. Staying with the Quiñoneses also allowed him to study even more, because one of the family members was his teacher. On Fridays, the boy had to hurry back to the house in town to do the course before heading out on his kilometers-long trek back to the mountain village where his family was. Usually, he had other kids walking with him who also were on their way home. Back then, kids were already independent and parents left them to their own devices, so nobody expected to be picked up from school and be brought back home. On this particular afternoon, he ended up going home late from school. When he got to the Quiñones' house, nobody was home and it was late in the afternoon. He still did his course and finished at dusk. He had no dinner because the host family was out. He could not get into the room that he shared with the other boys because the house was closed. His fellow working students had already gone home to their own villages. He creeped into an open shed in the yard. It was already dark and he tried sleeping on a pile of sacks, but he got scared, as any little boy would be, in the dark. Besides, he was hungry too, and the mosquitoes were bothering him. Right then, he bravely decided to go home. It was already dark. It was dangerous to head into the mountains alone without any street lamps to light the path, with many ravines along the way. He walked to the edge of town, bringing a net bag with his school things in it slung over his shoulder. When he started his trek up the logging road that led up the hills, it was pitch black. He trudged on, in part by memory, and in part by feeling through the shrubs that lined the sides of the road. The moon was pale that night, so he could not count on it. By the time he got to where he reckoned was an open field with low bushes and wild coffee in it, he stopped in his tracks. There were fireflies swarming one of the trees some distance away. From memory, he calculated where he should be going based on the location of the tree. As his eyes got accustomed to the darkness, the faint ribbon of road became gradually visible to him. He continued on his way a little bit faster now that he could see where the road was. The biggest problem after that was he had to leave the road and follow a footpath that led to his village. It was at least 5 kilometers without any light, through trees, bushes, and ravines. As he got to the junction where he would be leaving the road, he noticed a small swarm of fireflies circling the bushes at the precise point where he would go into the darkened footpath. He thankfully made the turn and slowly made his way up the hill. He then noticed that he could see the faint outline of the path, as if there was a tiny lamp lighting the way. He looked up and noticed one of the fireflies, an unusually large one, judging from the light it was emitting, just flying ahead of him, revealing the path. He hurried on to follow it, anxious to take advantage of the light it was providing before it flew away in another direction. Mysteriously, the firefly never left the path. It just continued on for the rest of the way. As his eyes got accustomed to the light it gave him, he walked faster since everything in front of him seemed a lot brighter. It only flew away and got lost among other fireflies swarming the trees near his family's home. For 5 kilometers, this little angel shone its light in front of a young boy walking home in the dead of night. A small miracle, no doubt. The little boy in the story was Papa when he was a school kid.